2001, he started Five Links Enterprises, which I should point out to you, it has been on Inc.'s 500 most successful companies or fastest growing companies in the country for the last 4 years. So this has been an enormously successful company and continues to be a highly successful company. I had the pleasure of having lunch with Craig yesterday, and I want to tell you that you can really learn a lot from him. He's a man who's really been in the trenches. He's experienced all the ups and downs that you can have when you found a company, and he's figured out how you can succeed and how you can thrive, even when things seem like they're falling apart in front of you. So I'd like to present him. He's a great entrepreneur. He is a great problem solver, which you need to have when you're founding a company, because you have to be able to solve all those problems you never anticipated that come up, and he's also a great salesperson. So I'm sure you really enjoy his talk, and so
Thank you, Dr. White. It's pretty humbling to get an introduction like that from someone who is as smart as this woman is. In fact, someone asked me earlier if I was nervous about doing this presentation. And I give talks 3 or 4 times a year. And my immediate response was, yes, I'm absolutely nervous, because I generally don't get to speak to a bunch of people that are as smart as people around that are surrounding me here. I've met probably a half a dozen PhDs in the last 30 minutes. So it's a little humbling when you're in a crowd like this. So, and I'm also surrounded by some pretty impressive speakers. So I'm going to do my best to impart some of my experiences to you guys, and hopefully you'll find it informative and somewhat entertaining. Our company, Five Links, has been around since 2001. In fact, March was our 13th anniversary in business. We employ about 260 people in Rochester, New York. Some people ask me why Rochester, and the reason for that is that Rochester was actually the first city in the United States to deregulate local telecom. So it is the heart, basically the hotbed, and was for a number of years, for telecommunications. RIT is the first university in the country to start a telecommunications master's program. Now there's one in Colorado as well. But that was the reason for Rochester, plus it's a great place to raise a family. So Rochester has been home since 1990. This is my 3rd startup, as Dr. White said, and I'm hoping it's not my last. I think I probably have 1 or 2 more in me, and my son is here with me today, and he's going to graduate from Babson next month. So I'm hoping he's going to bring his entrepreneurial skills together. Actually, what I really want is for him to do all the hard work and the heavy lifting, and for me to direct in the next one. So that's my goal, and now he knows it. But the fact is, our company has been around for a long time. We've been modestly successful. We're pretty happy with success. We're in 50 states and Canada. We are a licensed telecom company in the U.S. and Canada. We also have an energy business, and if I were to sum up the company in 20 words or less, we sell what I like to call essential services for your home or business. So if there's a switch associated with it in your house or a remote control, we market those services. And we do that through a network of independent sales representatives, and there's over 95,000 of those sales representatives active in our business around the country today. So a little bit about Five Links. Now, success the only choice. Oh, by the way, I just want to thank Dolly for putting this together. She is one busy lady, but you guys have heard the expression, if you haven't, I'm going to share it with you. If you need something done, you find a busy woman to get it done, right? And I think all these ladies who have participated in this event exemplify that. They've been working really hard to put this thing together. But when Dolly suggested I come to Harvard, by the way, probably the only chance I was ever going to have to come to Harvard as well. But the fact is, I love the topic. Success the only choice, to me, resonated. Because success is a choice. Right? It's not an accident. I firmly believe that you're going to be successful in life if you put your mind to it. So when I thought about it, I said, what one word encompasses the traits of a successful person, a successful entrepreneur? And the one word I kept coming back to was relentless. And a lot of people will use words like committed, or determined, or persistent. And those are all good words. I think they're all characteristics of entrepreneurs. But they didn't convey the emotion that I think a really successful entrepreneur needs to have. Because it's an emotional ride that you're going on. And being tenacious is one thing. Being relentless is another. So the dictionary definition is showing or promising no abatement of severity, intensity, strength, or pace. Those are all pretty strong words. A lot more intense than passionate or committed. And that's why I think that's, to me, you can be persistent, but you really need to be relentless if you're going to survive in business today. And I put up there, be relentless in the pursuit of your goals. And the reason that's important is because when you start a business, or any enterprise, a not-for-profit, you're going to have people tell you all the reasons why it won't be successful. And for those students in the crowd, I can tell you that when we all think we have a path laid out, your friends and family will find 100 reasons why you shouldn't do what it is you're planning to do and what you're passionate about. But that doesn't really matter. What matters is that you are relentless in the pursuit of that goal. The first person who told me not to embark on my path to entrepreneurship was my mother. Right? Of all people, right? You think, Mom's going to be the one that supports you. But I was working for AT&T, which she thought was the greatest thing in the world. I joined AT&T in 1984. And she said, this is great. You are set for life. You're going to have a pension, benefits, all these things that back in 1984 people thought were the goal, right? That was the holy grail. You find a job at IBM or AT&T, and you're set. Of course, back then AT&T was still the phone company. My mom. Some of us in the room are old enough to remember that. Yeah. Some of you are not. But the fact is, the day I joined AT&T, which was June 1, 1984, they let go 25,000 people that day. Wow. So I walked in, and any of you remember Bear Stearns, pictures on the news of all people walking through Wall Street with boxes in their hands of all their personal belongings? That's what I walked into the day I joined AT&T. I think I was the most despised person in the building. Who is this kid coming to work while we're all leaving? Right? But the fact is, 8 years later, I left AT&T sort of by choice. Both of us made a choice, I think. I left there because I went for an interview. And I interviewed with this guy, and I thought I was a hot shot. Right? I go interview with this guy who, as soon as I walked in 30 seconds, I knew it was done. The interview was over. I got out of the interview. I called my boss. I said, boss, how'd I do? He said, not well. He said, the term loose cannon was used. So that's not a good term. Right? That's not a good descriptor when someone calls you loose cannon. So I went home, called a friend, and said, listen, I need to do something different. I need to do something different soon. 2 weeks later, I was working for a wireless company. Never did a resume, never told anybody. My boss said it was just a matter of time. Because people like you don't stay here at places like this for very long. That was my first clue that I probably needed to do something on my own. Went to work for a wireless company, loved it. They got bought by SBC. SBC is now AT&T. I don't know how many people know this, but the old AT&T that we all, us people over the age of 50, no one knew and loved, right, is gone. There were 14,000 people left of the over 1 million people that worked for AT&T in 1984. Over 1 million in 1984. 14,000 in 2006 when SBC Communications bought AT&T, took over the brand. Wasn't exactly the best place to work for all those years. But the fact is, SBC was coming in, I knew it was my time to move on, so I decided to start my own business at that point in time. A little background, I'm going to get into a little bit more after. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to look at who is a typical entrepreneur. I don't think there really is one, but the ones we hear about a lot now, if you look at the first line there, you see, there's Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and WhatsApp, right? All wildly successful in the last few years. For the most part, I don't think any of the founders are over 30 years old. Right? These companies are not the typical entrepreneurs in America. Right? These are the people who won the mega ball jackpot. Right? They got the $400 million ticket. That doesn't mean they don't deserve to be successful. They're bright people, they had great ideas, they had ideas that changed the world, right? And are changing the world. But the fact is, they're 1 in 10 million, the 1 in 20 million, the 1 in 50 million. They're not the typical entrepreneur. We go down to the next line. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of Nick Woodman. Anybody ever hear of Nick Woodman? How about GoPro? GoPro cameras?
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of people see those, snowboarders, wakeboarders, athletes are using these devices. Well, Nick Woodman was a dot-com failure. Right? In 1989, he started a company, an e-commerce company that went bust. In 2001, he had a second dot-com company that went bust. He borrowed $4 million from other people, lost all $4 million, went on a surf trip, this is the truth, went on a surf trip and decided it'd be really cool if he could videotape his surfing. Came back and invented GoPro. This man who had 2 significant failures in your dot-com boom is now worth $1.75 billion because he went surfing. Not your typical story. Steve Jobs. Now, everybody's heard of Steve Jobs. Everybody's heard about the computer. What was amazing to me is how many people don't realize that Steve Jobs got fired from his own company. Right? When he started that company, he was fired from it because he lost so much money, almost put the company out of business, when he decided that the Lisa computer was going to displace the original Macintosh computer. So the board fired him. Now, if ever there was a guy who was relentless, whether it was relentless in the pursuit of design, relentless in the pursuit of growing his company, or relentless in the pursuit of any idea, I think Steve Jobs is the epitome of that. He started another company called Next Computers. Anybody here remember Next Computers? Yes. That's was girl before you. Next Computers went out of business, but Apple ended up buying some of the rights, right? But Steve Jobs got brought back to Apple, and I think we all know Steve Jobs as probably one of the most transformative business people in the world today. And Steve Jobs, who got fired from his own company, unfortunately we lost him. He worth $10.2 billion. James Dyson. I never thought of vacuum cleaners as sexy, right? But $3 billion is sexy. Right? James Dyson, who's a guy none of us probably ever heard of, other than we've heard of Dyson vacuums, he built 5,126 prototypes of his vacuum before he came up with one that worked. He spent 15 years of his life, wiped out his family savings, and finally, on try 5,127, came up with a device that made him a billionaire. But he's a guy we've probably never heard of. It doesn't come into our consciousness when we think about successful entrepreneurs. Thomas Edison, we all know who Thomas Edison is. He failed over 1,000 times trying to create the incandescent light bulb. I don't think I can do anything 1,000 times. Right? That's relentless. Right? Some people might say he's a grinder. Now that I am. And any good entrepreneur will tell you at some point in their life they are a grinder. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times. Colonel Sanders. Have you ever seen Kentucky Fried Chicken franchise?
Yep.
There are over 8,000 around the world right now. He didn't start until he was 65. He was peddling chicken in a gas station using his special recipe of 8 herbs and spices until he was 65 years old. Then he finally decided at 65 he was going to buy the property across the street from the service station he was working in and start the first Kentucky Fried Chicken franchise. I had no idea. He later sold that. 10 years later, he sold it for $2 million. Now it is one of the most successful franchises in the world. Who knew? Right? If you look at the census, there are 27 million businesses in the United States. Only of those 27 million, 21 are actually sole proprietorships. 21 million people out there doing business on their own shingle out. I don't think that's what we typically think of when we're at Harvard Business School, or any business school for that matter, or Babson. When you're in school, you don't think about hanging out your own shingle and that being your entrepreneurial path. But the fact is, there are many days when I wish I didn't have 260 employees, and it's just me in an office someplace. But that is a path that many people will take, and it's a good path. And I bring these things up because I want to show the variety of it. You know, I'm an entrepreneur. I've done it 3 times. I've had success. I've had failure. I'll continue to have challenges in my career. But the fact is, that's my path. And it's been rewarding for me and my family. I'm sure you guys will find the one that works for you. I want to share a clip with you. If I can get it to the